History of the BMP family. During the 1950s, the Red Army drew up requirements for a new kind of armored fighting vehicle, these being good top speed, good main armament, the ability for the vehicle to carry a full squad of men, and the ability for the individual squad members to fire from inside of the vehicle, and amphibious capability. In the early stages of development, the Red Army demanded that the new vehicle be fitted with the 73mm 2A28 Grom low-pressure smoothbore semi-automatic cannon and the brand new M-Class 9M14 Malutka ATGM. Multiple designs for the project were submitted, these being Object 1200 from Bryansk Automobile Works, Object 911 from Volgograd Tractor Works, Object 914 from the Volgograd Tractor Factory, Object 19 from the Altai Tractor Plant, and Object 764 from the Chelyabinsk Tractor Works. Out of all of these, Object 764 would be chosen as best fitting the requirements set by the Red Army, and it would be named BMP-1, Boyevaya Mashina Pekhoty 1. In modern terms, these requirements would make the new vehicle a IFV. Well, this was not the first IFV. The title of the world's first IFV belonged to the West German HS-30. The BMP-1 would be the single most important IFV in all military history. The BMP-1. With adoption of Object 764 into service as the BMP-1, the Red Army had developed the first modern IFV. It featured the 73mm 2A28 Grom low-pressure smoothbore semi-automatic cannon as its main armament, with the 9M14 Malutka ATGM as a secondary weapon. The BMP-1 featured 3 crew members, a driver and commander in the hull, and a gunner inside of the turret. The turret was rather low profile, with the 9M14 Malutka mounted above the barrel. As well, base models of the BMP-1 featured an autoloader for the 73mm Grom. However, in later variants, such as the BMP-1P submodel, it was removed. The BMP-1P submodel featured a notable upgrade to the firepower of the BMP-1, removing the old 9M14 Malutka ATGM launcher system and replacing it with the 9P135M ATGM launcher, capable of firing SAC-loss-guided 9M111 Fagot ATGMs or 9M113 Konkurs ATGMs. The BMP-2. The BMP-2 was the direct successor to the preceding BMP-1 and BMP-1P, entering service in 1980. However, the BMP-1, BMP-1P, and BMP-2 all served at the same time due to issues with the Red Army. The BMP-2 came from efforts to improve the main armament of the BMP, due to the 73mm Grom proving to be fairly inaccurate at range, and during the combat debut of the BMP-1 in the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, the BMP-1 fared fairly poorly due to lacking side protection and the 73mm Grom having poor accuracy. The BMP-2 in many ways is similar to the preceding BMP-1 due to sharing a nearly identical hull design and similar turret shape and silhouette. However, unlike the BMP-1, the BMP-2 was armed with the 30mm 2A42 autocannon and the 9P135M ATGM launcher capable of firing SAC-loss-guided 9M111 Fagot ATGMs or 9M113 Konkurs ATGMs. During the Soviet-Afghan War, the BMP-2D submodel was made to somewhat mitigate the issues of the BMP-2s in use by the Red Army being destroyed by side shots from 50 caliber weapons. Serving up to the modern day, every single BMP-1 has been converted to BMP-2 standard, and some of these BMP-2s have been converted to the BMP-2M standards. The BMP-2M being a complete modernization of the vehicle, adding new FCS systems, new 30mm ammunition, and the installation of 4 launchers for the 9M113 Kornet ATGM. The BMP-3. At the time of writing this, the BMP-3 is the most modern member of the BMP family in service. It entered service in the late 1980s and made its first public debut in 1990 at the Victory Parade in Moscow. It features a new 2A72 30mm autocannon, with larger ammunition belts compared to the older 2A42, but a considerably lower rate of fire, and the 100mm 2A70 gun launcher, capable of both firing the 9M117 Bastion ATGM or the 30F32 or 30F70 HE rounds. Both the 2A72 and the 2A70 are mounted in a dual weapon system. As well, the later models of the BMP-3 feature a thermal sight, additional ERA specifically designed for the BMP-3, and even the Arena active protection system. However, due to the high costs of these upgrades, only the thermal sight upgrade with the Bachka-U system from the 2000s is in service in large numbers. The BMP family in War Thunder. War Thunder features almost every member of the BMP family. These include the base model BMP-1, the BMP-1P, the BMP-2, the BMP-2D, the BMP-2M, the BMP-3, and the BMP-3 Bachka-U. The BMP-1 in War Thunder. The BMP-1 is the most numerous variant in the game, having 4 variants total, these being the Soviet BMP-1 or BMP-1P, the East German Spähpanzer BMP-1 or BMP-1P, the Chinese ZBD-86, and the Swedish PBV-501. Soviet and East German BMP-1 and BMP-1P. The Soviet and East German versions of the BMP-1 are the oldest in game. The first BMP added to the game was the Soviet BMP-1 in update 1.71, while the Spähpanzer BMP-1 came in update 1.93. Both of these BMP-1s are identical, featuring the 73mm Grom smoothbore cannon and the 9M14 Malyutka M-Class ATGM. However, they feature a researchable modification which will upgrade it to the BMP-1P submodel, featuring the addition of the 9P135M ATGM launcher armed with the 9M113 Konkurs ATGM. The ZBD-86. In appearance, the ZBD-86 seems like an ordinary BMP armed with the Malyutka ATGM. While this is in some part true due to the HJ-73 ATGM being a license-produced variant of the 9M14 Malyutka under a Chinese designation. However, the ZBD-86 features a researchable modification for the HJ-73E version of the missile. This ATGM is incredibly potent due to its tandem warhead and 800mm of penetration, making it equivalent to the American TOW-2A. However, it does not change appearance of the launcher or the ATGM. Keep this in mind, as most enemies will underestimate the ZBD-86 due to perceiving it as a base model BMP-1 carrying the 9M14 Malyutka. As well, the HJ-73E is SAC-class guided rather than M-class guided like the HJ-73 or the Malyutka. The PBV-501. The PBV-501 is the lowest BR member of the BMP family, sitting at a battle rating of 6.7. While to the naked eye it might look like a base model BMP with the 9M14 Malyutka ATGM removed, in reality it is a BMP-1P with the 9P135M launcher removed. This gives it the neat quirk of lacking an autoloader and having the gunner act as the loader. This is not a downside, as the BMP-1P with its manual loader out-reloads the automatic one found on the base BMP. As for the PBV-501, it is incredibly potent, as it faces many World War II tanks, and it still features the excellent PG-9 73mm heat round. The BMP-2 in War Thunder. Unlike the BMP-1, the BMP-2 only has 3 major variants in game, with 1 sub-variant. These include the base model BMP-2, the BMP-2D, the BMP-2MD, and the BMP-2M. The BMP-2 and BMP-2D. The BMP-2 is one of the best IFVs at the BR of 8.7. Its 2A42 30mm autocannon has an incredibly high rate of fire with APDS belts capable of penetrating almost every NATO MBT it can face. As well, it features the 9M113 Konkurs ATGM. The 9P135M ATGM launcher can be controlled independently, giving the BMP-2 a slight ability to hide the entire IFV and only peek out the launcher to fire. The BMP-2D is an upgrade available in the 3rd rank of modifications for the BMP-2. It gives the BMP-2 additional armor protection on the side and rear, making it immune to .50 caliber weapons side-on. However, the additional weight somewhat hampers the amphibious capability of the IFV. When using the BMP-2D, it is recommended to not reverse while in water, as it will sink the IFV. When idle, the rear of the BMP-2D will sink slightly, but once moving forward, it will level out and function normally. The BMP-2MD. The BMP-2MD is a finished modernization of the BMP-2. It removes the 9P135M ATGM launcher completely. However, it adds a thermal sight to the IFV. It is fairly bad due to being a worse BMP-2 at the same BR. It's a squadron vehicle, however, it should be avoided due to how bad it is and how poorly it can perform. The BMP-2M. The BMP-2M is the most modern version of the BMP-2 in-game. It features a new thermal sight with a 2A42 autocannon, with new 3UBR-11 APFSDS rounds and 9M133 Cornet ATGM located in 2 double launchers with 1 per side and the 30mm AG-30M grenade launcher. It features the unique ability to fire its ATGMs on the move, something no other IFV possesses at this time. However, it is a very high BR, being located at 10.3. It is a squadron vehicle and can be accessed by anyone. However, it is usually played by players of lower skill due to being a squadron vehicle in a popular tech tree. As well, the AG-30 grenade launcher can be used as makeshift artillery. However, this requires the drone and a fair bit of practice. The BMP-3. The BMP-3 is the most modern member of the BMP family. It features the unique trait of having its ATGM being fired from its 2A70 100mm cannon. As well, both the 9M117 and 9M117M1 Bastion ATGMs are extremely fast, being potent at hitting helicopters and surprising heavy armor with its speed. Keep in mind, the 2A72 30mm autocannon has a slower rate of fire than the 2A42 found on the BMP-2. As for other minor changes, it features a thermal sight, entrenchment tool, and hydropneumatic suspension. As well, unlike the BMP-2M and the Chinese ZBD-04, the BMP-3 does not feature any form of 30mm APFSDS projectiles. Munitions of the BMP family. PG-9. The PG-9 is the main anti-armor weapon of all BMP-1s. It's a fairly low velocity round, however, it packs quite the punch, being able to penetrate 300mm of flat steel at any range. However, it's extremely weak to any form of reactive armor. OG-9. The OG-9 is the main anti-infantry weapon for all BMP-1s. However, in War Thunder, the OG-9 round is somewhat useless, as due to the heat nature of the PG-9, it will overpressure light vehicles. Even in the class of HE rounds, the OG-9 is fairly poor, only having 735 grams of explosive mass. 9M14 Malyutka. The 9M14 Malyutka is the first ATGM most players will have access to. It is M-class guided, meaning that it must be guided in with keyboard controls. This can be somewhat tricky at first, however, it can be used as an unguided rocket if the main gun is fully depressed. As an ATGM, it's fairly solid. It has 400mm of penetration with a fairly large 3kg explosive mass. However, due to the guidance, it can be somewhat tricky to guide in, and its speed is somewhat subpar. 9M113 Concourse. The 9M113 Concourse is featured on the BMP-1P submodel of the BMP-1 and the BMP-2. It is a fairly good anti-armor weapon, being SAT-class guided. Most players will see a large increase in accuracy compared to the previous 9M14 Malyutka. As well, the 9P135M launcher can be controlled independently. This allows the BMP-2 slight capability to fire with impunity. 3UBR-8. 3UBR-8 is the standard 30mm APDS round found on the BMP-2 and BMP-3. It's fairly solid, being able to shred the sides of NATO MBTs and their tracks and barrels. As well, it's excellent for taking out light vehicles. As well, it can penetrate light NATO MBTs such as the Leopard 1 and OF-40 from the front. The 9M117. The 9M117 Bastion ATGM is a 100mm anti-tank guided missile found on the BMP-3. It is fired from the 2A70 100mm cannon. As well, it is extremely fast and features a good warhead. Meanwhile, the 9M117M1 variant of the Bastion features a tandem warhead and more penetration. 3UBR-11. 3UBR-11 is a 30mm APFSDS round found only on the BMP-2M. It is an incredibly potent weapon, being able to kill some NATO MBTs frontally, like the Abrams or the Challenger. It is an incredibly potent round and should be rushed in the BMP-2 as soon as the player unlocks the previous 3UBR-8 APDS rounds. However, do note that some vehicles such as the Leopard 2s and Soviet or Chinese MBTs can be quite tricky to kill from the front. 9M133 Cornet. The 9M133 Cornet ATGM is the most powerful ground-launched ATGM in War Thunder, featuring a tandem warhead to defeat ERA with 1200mm of penetration. It is incredibly potent at destroying enemy vehicles. However, do note that this is still an ATGM, and the main gun rounds fired from other vehicles will always be faster. It is not recommended to engage NATO MBTs frontally, as their APFSDS rounds will outspeed your 9M 133 coordinate ATGM, resulting in a trade. As well, there is a airburst variant of the 9M 133 coordinate. This one is fairly useful for taking out helicopters, as the BMP-2M can be used as a sort of budget SPA. However, you lose the large amounts of penetration from the normal coordinate. Guidance types. There are two types of ATGM guidances. M-Class, manual command line of sight. These types of ATGMs require the launching vehicle to be completely stopped during the entire launch and track process. It cannot move during said process. It is keyboard controlled via WASD, however, do note the controls are inverted. The second type of ATGM guidance is ZAC-Class, semi-automatic command line of sight. These types of ATGMs do not require the launching vehicle to be completely stopped during the guidance stage. Rather, in most cases, only when the ATGM is being launched. These types of ATGMs are mouse-guided and will follow the center of your cursor. This makes them very easy to aim. So in conclusion, the BMP family in War Thunder features many vehicles, from the humble BMP-1 and BMP-1P, which are my personal favorite members of the family, all the way up to the BMP-3 and BMP-2M. All throughout the battle ratings in the game, all of the BMPs can perform spectacularly due to their amazing armament, mobility, and ammunition. However, the lack of armor can be noticed, especially in models that are not the BMP-2D, as 50 caliber shots from the side or through the turret will kill you.